हाय फ्रेंड्स। आज हम शॉक के बारे में पढ़ने जा रहे हैं। व्हाट इज द सिंपल मीनिंग ऑफ शॉक? इन शॉक देयर इज द कार्डियोवैस्कुलर सिस्टम कोलैप्स और सर्कुलेटरी कोलैप्स. What is the characteristics of shock? There is the hypoxia to tissue. There is the deficiency of oxygen to various types of tissues in the body. There is the widespread deficiency of blood perfusion to body. Blood perfusion, simple meaning is that blood perfusion is responsible. This blood perfusion is responsible for circulation of oxygen, nutrients, and also elimination of waste products. And there's the deficiency of nutrition to tissue and elimination of waste products is also hampered in the shock. Now we are going to tell about the normal physiology of cardiovascular system. Okay, what is the volume? What is the normal volume in the body? That one is the 5 liter. What is the cardiac output? That one is the 5 liter per minute. And now what is the capacity? So capacity is also 5 liter. So suppose that one is the our height and this one is the our vascular system. So volume is 5 liter, capacity is 5 liter. So if there is no disparity between the volume and capacity, so there is no development of shock in the body. If there is any disparity developed between this volume and capacity, then there is the generation of shock occurs. So suppose if there is injury in this myocardium, so loss of blood occurs from height, and due to this loss of blood there is decrease in the venous return, decrease in the venous return. Why there is a decrease in venous return? Because there is a decrease in the blood volume. So there is a decrease in blood volume, decrease in the venous return, so there is the decrease in cardiac filling. And if there is decrease in cardiac filling, this condition leads to decrease in cardiac output. Yes. Why there is a decrease in cardiac output? Due to the loss of blood. Due to the loss of blood. And due to the loss of blood, this condition leads to shock. And why this shock happens? Is shock happens due to the loss of blood. Loss means hypo. And what is the loss? There is the blood volume. So that thing is known as the hypovolemic shock. Have you got it? So first one is the hypovolemic shock, and why it is occurs due to the volume. So that one is known as the volume failure. Have you got it? This one is the volume failure. What is the main point here? There is a disparity between the capacity and volume. Now suppose there is the volume is 5 liter and the capacity is also 5 liter, and the capacity is also 5 liter, but our myocardium is not acting like a pump. Yes, but our myocardium is not acting like a pump. So this is due to pump failure. First one is due to volume failure, and now this one is due to the pump failure. So there is the reduction and the pump function, and there is pump function of height. This condition lead to serious collapse and patient again going in a shock, and this shock is developed due to the pump action of height. That's why this one is known as the cardiogenic shock. Have you got it? First we have seen hypovolemic shock, second one we have seen cardiogenic shock, and now third one. Third one is the known as distributive shock. What is the distributive shock? Here is volume is normal 5 liter, but the capacity increases. But capacity increase. Suppose there is the capacity is 8 liter. So now what happened? That the capacity from 5 liter it increases up to 8 liter. Why this happens? This happens due to the too much vascular system dilation. Due to too much vascular system dilatation, there is too much blood distributed in periphery periphery of our body. So there is the formation of blood pools. So there is the formation of blood pools in the periphery tissue, and due to formation of blood pools, there is a reduction in the venous return. So there is a decrease in the venous return. This leads to decrease in cardiac output, and this condition again leads to shock. This condition, too much blood distributed in the periphery of tissue, this condition is the pathological condition. This condition is the pathological condition. Now, can you tell me about the example of this condition? The example of this condition is the anaphylactic shock. What is the example? The example of this condition is the anaphylactic shock. What occurs in the anaphylactic shock? Suppose suppose this is our heart and here is our the mast cells. This our mast cells and Ig antibody present on mast cells. Suppose if we given a drug to this patient, now this drug interact with this antibody, Ig antibody, and due to the interaction between this drug and this antibody, these mast cells release histamine, and this histamine causes severe vasodilation, severe vasodilation, and due to this vasodilation, shock develops. This one is the mechanism of anaphylactic shock. Now the another example of this distributive shock, that one is the septic shock. What is the another example? Another example of this is the septic shock. 1 minute please. Another example of this is the septic shock. What occurs in the septic shock? Septic shock is due to the septicemia in the body. Septicemia in body. What is the meaning of septicemia? Septicemia means septicemia, infected by different types of bacteria. Okay, septicemia in the body infected by different types of bacteria. These bacteria release endotoxins in the body. These endotoxins activate various types of WBCs in our body, and these WBCs release cytokines, and these cytokines causes vasodilation that again leads to the condition like shock. Okay, this happens about the septic shock. Now the another point is about the neurogenic shock. Neurogenic shock. Neurogenic shock is the another example of distributive shock. What happens in the neurogenic shock? There is failure of sympathetic nervous system. There is a failure of sympathetic nervous system. What happens if a person commits suicide? Suppose, for an example, suppose if a person commits suicide, he takes high dose of sympatholytic drugs. He takes a high dose of sympatholytic drugs, and these drugs cause the severe vasodilation, cause severe blood vessel dilatation, and due to this dilatation, these conditions lead to shock. So this one is about the neurogenic shock. Now the last one point is remaining about, and the last shock is the obstructive shock. What is the obstructive shock? Suppose this is our height. Okay, suppose this is our height. Here our height is normal, means myocardium is normal, volume is also normal, and capacity is also normal. In spite of all these things, again, in spite of all these things, there is development and generation of shock. How it can be possible? It can be possible if we put a obstruction on here. So normally the pump functions of head is normal, but initially after it is not possible. It is not possible. Suppose if we put a obstruction, or due to this obstruction, like pulmonary artery obstruction, for example, like deep vein thrombosis. And how this obstruction? Due to a very due to a big embolus, due to a big embolus. And due to obstruction, there is the supply of blood to heart is not possible, and due to this there is a decrease in venous return, and again there is a decrease in cardiac output. That condition leads to shock. Okay, and this one is the obstructive shock. And now our point is